everyone, it's Sevi, and it's time for our appointment with Miss Healer Lady Bailu, our standard 5-star Abundance Lightning character. While this little chaotic dragon may have problems getting taller, she makes up for it with her huge healing powers. So to help you maximize her support role, this guide will discuss her kit and traces, Eidolons, best relic and light cone builds, team comps, and general tips. Let the checkup begin.
There's only one ailment that I can't cure, and that is being short!
As an abundance unit, Bailu provides incredible survivability to your team in the form of her potent and persistent healing abilities. With certain build choices, Bailu can contribute to your team's efficiency in combat beyond simply healing them. We'll go through her kit first to understand what makes her overall support utility amazing. Bailu's skill heals an initial target, and the amount healed scales on Bailu's HP as with every healing source in her kit. Then that healing bounces to 2 more random party members, with each consecutive healing bounce being slightly reduced in potency. Ideally, you want it to bounce to those targets that are in need of healing. When you're up against enemies with AoE attacks, the multi-target healing of her skill will be even more useful. However, the RNG nature of it can lead to unfortunate scenarios where it doesn't bounce to your desired targets. This healing can also bounce on the same target, so it's technically possible one target will receive all 3 healing procs, which might be a good thing or bad thing sometimes. At the very least, the initial healing is substantial, but just pray to the RNG gods that the bounces go to whoever you want healing for. If you need a guaranteed team-wide heal, Bailu's ultimate does exactly that. It heals for quite a large amount that can be a team lifesaver in many emergency scenarios, but more importantly, it applies the invigoration buff to your party members for 2 turns, which is a very important and unique aspect of Bailu's healing potential. When an ally has Invigoration applied, they heal back some HP if they get hit by an enemy. This can trigger up to 2 times or until the buff expires. While the concept is very simple, this is a very potent source of healing with advantages over using Bailu's skill or ultimate to heal. For one, this mode of healing isn't dependent on Bailu's turn, and she still manages to grant your entire team a reactive and persistent source of healing even if it's the enemy's turn, which is the time you have to be most alert to your team's health. And since it heals back right after getting damaged, you can view it as a form of instant damage mitigation, or in some cases, it totally nullifies it. Especially against AoE attacks, Invigoration is a great counter, since it's a team-wide buff that can activate among different units at the same time. In the unfortunate event that Bailu gets temporarily disabled, Invigoration still works when an ally gets hit. Do note though that Invigoration will not trigger if it's a damage over time effect like Bleed or Frozen. There's another very important and unique effect granted by Bailu's talent. This is her DIY defibrillator that can revive and heal any party member except herself once per battle. One way you could look at this is a safety net against careless mistakes or unexpected fatal attacks. On the other hand, it can let you be more aggressive with your playstyle while it's still active, since you're willing to risk the safety of a character in exchange for a more offensive setup. When you're in especially hard content like Memory of Chaos, the revive will be so helpful to keep a battle going and prevent possible resets due to a death. Watch out though, because if Bailu is disabled or dead herself, she can't revive anyone. So just like how doctors IRL should put their health first in order to best help others, make sure to keep Bailu healthy and alive with her own healing if necessary. Certain build optimizations can also help reduce the chances of her getting disabled. If you also want more defensive utility at the start of the battle, using Bailu's technique grants your entire team the Invigoration buff immediately at the start of battle for 2 turns. This can be very helpful if you know your enemies are ready to dish out a lot of damage from the get-go, and you can more comfortably generate energy for Bailu at the start to ready her ultimate ASAP. One more role Bailu assumes is being a skill point generator. Her ultimate and Invigoration healing can be generally strong enough to sustain your team for the most part, so that using her skill can be reserved for only pressing or dire scenarios. So, while Bailu's skill healing is not necessary, use her basic attack to generate skill points and energy in the meantime. This feeds into your other skill-hungry teammates and helps your overall skill point economy. And with Ascension bonus abilities, Bailu's utilities get even better. Her Ascension 2 ability makes Invigoration trigger 1 more time, which is great for more potential damage mitigation and reactive healing. Her Ascension 4 ability makes it so that when an ally is healed above their normal max HP, they get a 10 10% max HP increase for 2 turns. The added max HP makes Bailu's own healing more potent and basically increases your team's overall survivability, but it can get more use as we get more characters, particularly damage dealers, who have HP scaling abilities built into their kit. And her Ascension 6 ability makes her Invigoration buff give a 10% damage reduction to affected units. This further solidifies her survival role by not just healing and boosting HP, but also by actually reducing the damage your team receives. Bailu also gets HP, defense, and effect resistance minor traces, which are all valuable for her healing and own survivability. Effect resistance particularly helps lessen the chances of an enemy debuffing her, which is one way to prevent disabling effects from holding her back from her job. So when you're leveling up her traces, prioritize her ultimate, talent, then skill, though you eventually want to level them all up equally. Her basic attack can remain unleveled. Activate all her Ascension abilities as they get unlocked, and the minor stat bonuses when you have the materials to spare. Let's also briefly look at what her Eidolons add. E1 lets an ally affected by Invigoration regenerate 8 energy if they're at full HP when it ends. This is a nice addition to her base kit, as she can now innately help generate energy for your teammates. E2 increases her outgoing healing by 15% for 2 turns after casting her ultimate, which basically means stronger healing. E3 increases her skill and talent levels. E4 makes her skill bounce give the affected characters a 10% damage bonus. This can stack up to 3 times and last for 2 turns. It further rounds out her support value as she now buffs damage too, and if the skill only bounces on one target, preferably your DPS, at least they get even more damage bonus. E5 increases her ultimate and basic attack levels. And finally, E6 gives her 1 more extra revive per battle, which needs no explanation for how helpful that is. Up next, Bailu's relic build is pretty straightforward, though there might be things you may not have considered outside of just stacking full HP on her. Let's go through them. For the body piece, outgoing healing boost is the best choice since it will heal more than an HP piece, but HP is also fine. For the feet piece, it's highly recommended you equip speed on her. More speed lets her move sooner or get in more actions and cycles, helping her generate energy for herself and skill points for your team. It will also help Bailu reach the speed requirement of her best Planar Ornament set. However, if you don't have one yet or find that external speed buffs are sufficient, HP is an okay alternative. For the Planar Sphere, HP is your clear choice, and for the Link Rope, you can choose between HP and Energy Regeneration Rate, or ERR. Having an ERR Link Rope on her is enough to reduce her turns per ult by at least 1 turn, but it's possible you might not need ERR if you find her healing sources more than enough already, or if you have a light cone that provides added energy generation. In that case, more HP can help with her personal survivability and boost your raw healing power. You can try alternating to see what's more comfortable for you. For substats, speed, HP, effect resistance, and defense are your priorities. Effect resistance helps reduce the chance of an enemy applying a debuff on Bailu, which is especially helpful to avoid her getting disabled and unable to heal the team, or worse, revive an ally. More defense isn't bad either to further help with Bailu's own survivability. Moving on to her full sets, there are 2 viable choices. First is the 4-piece Passerby of Wandering Cloud, which increases healing and gives you 1 additional skill point at the start of battle, which can help with early setups. But the other option is the 4-piece Musketeer of Wild Wheat. It might seem counterintuitive at first since it looks like an offensive set. However, the biggest benefit is the speed bonus, which again helps Bailu's speed breakpoints and action frequency to boost her long-term skill point and energy generation. Look at it this way. Passerby of Wandering Cloud's starting extra skill point is an early battle investment, while Musketeer's permanent speed bonus can have better payoff in longer battles. Fortunately, you get these as free objective rewards or random chest loots, and they're both farmable in the same cavern, so it might eventually boil down to the quality and stats of the available pieces. And for the Planar Ornament set, the best choice is Fleet of the Ageless. It gives 12% HP, but more importantly, if Bailu hits 120 speed, it gives a team-wide 8% attack bonus. This is also another reason why using speed boots on Bailu is highly recommended. Moving on to her light cones, she has a lot of choices with distinct utilities that you can consider across all rarities. Let's start with her free-to-play 3-star options, which are all actually surprisingly good value since their base HP stats are exactly the same or pretty close to 4 stars, and they have useful effects. Cornucopia is for pure healing power, Fine Fruit has Team Energy utility, while Multiplication's Advanced Forward effect gives similar benefits I mentioned earlier about building speed on Bailu. These 3-star options can serve Bailu well until you decide to switch to another 4-star for better effects. For 4-star options, I'll first go through those that focus on Bailu's personal abilities and healing. Post-op Conversation boosts the energy regeneration rate and an ultimate outgoing healing bonus. This is a great user-focused light cone that addresses both Bailu's energy needs and healing power. Perfect Timing is also purely for the user's benefit as it buffs effect resistance and gives a healing bonus based on the user's effect resistance. Effect resistance could be situationally useful to prevent Bailu from being disabled by enemies, but I'd still recommend Post-op Conversation more if you're choosing between the two healing-focused light cones. Warmth shortens Cold Nights from the Battle Pass, increases the wearer's max HP, and gives a small party-wide heal whenever the user does a skill or basic attack. At least it makes her basic attack add very minor healing too, but it's not especially better than the other 4-star choices, so I wouldn't recommend getting this for your Battle Pass reward. Moving on, these other light cones now have effects beyond simply healing. Quid Pro Quo features Bailu herself, and you can purchase super impositions of it in the Forgotten Hall shop. For every turn of the user, a random ally, except the user, gets some energy back if their energy is lower than 50%. This helps in covering teammate energy needs, and also another reason for building speed since it triggers based on the user's turn. However, it offers no other healing related bonuses. Shared Feeling is a balance of both buffing the user's healing and regenerating a small amount of energy for all allies. The energy regeneration only triggers when Bailu uses her skill though, which in practice might not be that frequent since her ultimate and invigoration heal a lot already, and you generally want Bailu to stick to basic attacks for skill point generation. Finally, Time Waits for No One is her 5-star signature option. It gives the highest base stats and even more HP and outgoing healing bonuses, but its unique effect is that once per user's turn, it deals an additional instance of damage when an ally attacks, and the damage is based on the last total recorded healing by the wearer. Just note that the extra damage doesn't affect an enemy's toughness. Basically, this light cone provides superior healing and some additional damage output. So when you're choosing among these, of course it depends on what's available to you, but you should also consider the effects. Do you want a light cone that focuses on the user, one that adds more team support utility, or something in between? That can largely affect your light cone preference. If you're also wondering about Luocha's signature light cone, it doesn't synergize as well with Bailu since its effect buffs attack and energy for attacking enemies, which is definitely tailored to Luocha. It does buff your team's speed after using the ultimate, which is okay, but doesn't make the light cone worth pulling just for Bailu. Finally, let's talk about her teams and my quick thoughts on her value in relation to Luocha. As a healer support, Bailu is very flexible with what teams she slots in. If you need a healer, just slot her in and she'll do the job even as a solo survival support. Especially when you're up against AoE damage, her healing bounce and invigoration will do wonders. She's also a skill point positive unit that helps your skill point economy. If you do have a mono electro team enabled by Silverwolf or even just against lightning weak enemies in general, then having Bailu as your healer is the best choice to help break your enemy's toughness. If we get more units out of HP scaling abilities, then her bonus ability to boost your teammates' HP past their normal maximum will be helpful too. Take note though that if you're up against an enemy like Kafka, whose Dominate debuff can really ruin things for you, that might be a good case to have a cleanser on your team. Unfortunately, Bailu has no cleansing ability built into her kit or her light cone options, so there can be scenarios where Natasha's or March's cleanse utility might be more preferable. Enemy weaknesses can also be a factor if you're maximizing the right elements for breaking them. Regarding team positioning, it's best to put Bailu next to someone who has a high aggro or taunting abilities if you have one such on your team, or generally place her in a center slot to soak up splash damage from her left and right allies. Since Bailu has a lot of HP, she's the best teammate to absorb splash damage away from squishier allies, and it helps her get some energy too. In the same way, you can use Bailu to trigger counterattacks from certain enemies since she's much more capable of taking a hit, and it will also count towards her energy. Now you might be wondering, if you're not a big spender, is it worth pulling for Luocha if you already have Bailu? Let's just quickly go through what Luocha can do. If Bailu has her invigoration buff, Luocha has his field that enables allies to heal when they attack enemies, and an emergency auto heal every few turns if an ally falls to half HP or less. His heal scalings are also unique because they're now based on attack rather than HP. Additionally, his ultimate can remove a buff from all enemies, and he can cleanse one debuff on an ally from his skill effect. Luocha also has more offense since his ultimate attacks all enemies, which can be used for breaking imaginary weaknesses. Those are definitely interesting added utilities that are good counters to specific enemies. The roster of imaginary imaginary units is currently sparse, and if you don't already have Welt, then it's understandable you're in want of more imaginary coverage. So remember that Yukong will be releasing soon, and players will get a free copy of her in 1.2 anyway, and the imaginary roster will definitely keep expanding, so don't feel pressured to pull Luocha for that reason alone. So unless you really like Luocha, or you just don't mind having more abundance characters, having Bailu really reduces the incentive to pull for Luocha, and it might be better to save your pulls for other DPS or support units instead. Bailu already performs well even as the only survival unit in a Memory of Chaos team, and you can manage with Natasha and or preservation units on your second team, more so if you got lucky and also pulled Japard. All in all, the roster for survival units is quite limited as of now, making Bailu such a good value pickup to add more team building flexibility. Of course, that gap will slowly be filled in as time goes on, but even then, I think Bailu is an incredible healer whose prescriptions and vitamins will stay relevant for quite a long time. And that's it for our doctor's checkup. Hopefully, this guide has kept Bailu and your team in tip-top shape and ready to take on those tough battles. Let me know in the comments what you think of Bailu. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Take care!
Huh? I have to go back.